Okay, I've been working like 3 jobs.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Building a Fighter. My name is Dr. Austin Shane, but today we have Sid Pearce with us. He is a part of the Building a Fighter team. He's a co-owner with me. Alex, as we talked about last episode, stepped away. He's going to fulfill a dream of becoming a firefighter. We got a firefighter as well, but Sid Pearce is joining on. If you've been on the Instagram, he's been taking care of that for about 6 months, 8 months?
Somewhere.
I don't know, where we've gone from 500 followers to where we're at right now. That's because of Sid. And so basically I want to have him on. I want to intro him for everybody at home and then talk about where we're going with the podcast and what Sid can bring to the table to help our athletes out. So Sid, history, where do you come from? How do you know me? Why are you a part of Building the Fighter?
Where am I from? I was born in Boise, Idaho. Parents.
No shit. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Well, parents got divorced when I was really young. Moved back down. So I really spent my entire life in Pine, Arizona.
Okay.
So real small town, playing football, baseball. From the age of 6, playing all the sports as kids do.
Okay.
Graduated Payson High School. Played track and football. Worked out there I did strength and conditioning with the wrestlers, but I never wrestled. Had some pretty excellent...
So a lot of conditioning, not a lot of strength.
Well, I think the wrestling coach there, it was a pretty good strength and conditioning program that they had. I was a small kid, but I was still pretty strong. But luckily I was, shown good form and built good habits in the weight room at an early age with those coaches.
Okay.
So I didn't like wrestling, but they were always dogs in the weight room. So I liked working out with them. Graduated high school, moved down to the Valley, went to Mesa Community College for 2 years, transferred to Arizona State University, got my degree in public relations and mass communications journalism. Okay. Graduated there after 4 years, started doing my own social media business and photography, working in restaurants at the time. COVID hit and I kind of had to take a step back of what I wanted to do for a living. I didn't want to just manage social media for restaurants and things for the rest of my life.
Right.
And my grandpa was a retired fire chief, and I always thought that was a very honorable career, and I never thought that I could do the medical stuff. I thought it was too, sciencey, so I thought. And then I looked into it and I saw these other guys who are firefighters. I'm like, they could do it. I'm sure it can't be that hard.
100%.
And now I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I've been doing that for about 2 years. And been working with you, just under a year officially, but taking photos and working with you for a while now.
4 years? I think 4 years, 3 years?
Yeah, probably.
I believe so. It's when I started working with Hunter, I think. I think it was 5 months into working with Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be 4 years.
Yeah. Hunter Azure is my brother-in-law, the father of my nephews. Great dude. He was working out with you. And just one day I think I really asked, hey, can I come take photos?
Yeah.
And I started doing that for free. And I'm like, hey, I'll take photos if you make some workouts for me.
Yeah.
Because, I'm trying to get on with the fire department.
Get swoly moly.
Yeah, for sure. And
and I like to say, I always used to introduce Sid as it's Hunter's brother-in-law. And he always got butthurt about it. We're actually friends first.
Yes.
And then Hunter's brother-in-law third.
Right.
Friends, business partners, and Hunter's brother-in-law.
Yes.
No, and to be completely honest, bringing Sid on, my wife will say it, bringing Sid on has been the best thing we've done for Building a Fighter. It's allowed us to expand to more people. I'm not the greatest at social media. I don't know how to get my message out there all the time because I'm very 1,000 miles a minute up here.
Right. Yep.
And I'm a perfectionist at heart. And you've helped me realize that, hey, being really good and not being 100% perfect on every single post is really what social media is about.
Right. Let's get it out there.
Exactly.
You have so much knowledge in all these ways, and I like to think better
communication skills.
Well, not only, but
100% communication skills for people at home.
For just the photos and the way, the things are designed and laid out.
Right. Yeah.
I like to think that's where I fit in, and I just polished this beautiful piece of I don't know, equipment that you guys have already created.
Yeah.
And I'm just keeping it clean.
Well, I think it's a good evolution of building a fighter as a company, because where you're the best is where I lack, and that's why I wanted to bring you on as business partner,
Right?
Because that's what you need as a duo is you need to be able to give and take. It can't just everybody be in like the fucking running 1,000 miles a minute. Somebody needs to put the ideas into play, and you're very good at getting me to do that.
Good.
and keeping me, hey, we have 75 ideas. Let's pick 3.
Yeah.
And let's run with those. And once those are done, let's go to the next ones.
Yeah, it's easy to get, because I'm the same way. I am 1,000 miles a minute, but it's, yeah, when we have a plan, it's easier to
100%.
pick one or a couple.
Yeah. And stick with it.
Yeah, go down those paths.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for the people at home, what are some, like, what I want to get out of this episode is what are some social media skills or things, if they're fighters, if they're coaches, if they're like gym owners that want to get better on the social media side or on the self-marketing side? What are things that they need to focus on?
Focus first on asking yourself, who am I?
Yeah.
You know, if you're a fighter, are you loud? Are you quiet? If you're a coach, who do you coach? Who do you want to coach? Sometimes those answers are different. You know, maybe you're just coaching, you know, some middle-aged women and you want to get into, you know, younger collegiate athletes.
Yep.
How do you then create that content? There's multiple different ways to go about these things, but if you're trying to get into something that you're not currently doing, you could start by just doing it for free and using just whatever network you have.
Yep.
So if you're a coach and you want to get into coaching more young collegiate athletes, you know, put out some things. You could run some social media ads asking for, hey, I'm looking for a couple fighters that I'll train for free.
Yep.
You know, here's the conditions of that. We're going to film a couple videos a month and talk about, you know, your strengths and why you want to get into that. So you're offering a couple of kids, you know, recent high school graduates, some free things. They're training for their Division III, Division II, whatever college, whatever level they're playing at. But there's multiple ways to go about it. But
Well, you've done a really good job at getting me to understand. Just because you give away free care doesn't mean you're not going to get something in return. And being able to not just like, because I was uncomfortable asking for that.
Right.
I'm like, hey, like if I'm going to help you out, I don't really, because I don't expect anything ever. Like if I decide I'm giving free care, that's it. I'm never going to ask you for anything. Like that's just how it goes. But it's okay to, just because it's not monetary gain on the way back, it's okay to ask for exposure. It's okay to ask for somebody to help you out too. And that's something I feel like a lot of people in my shoes, they feel bad about because they don't want to feel slimy, right? You get into, at least hopefully, you get into what I do for the right reasons. You want to help people, whether it's the healthcare side of what I do, the strength and conditioning side of what I do, the business side of trying to change MMA and combat sports, what I do, you do it to help people.
right.
It's also okay to ask for help back.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like a lot of coaches at home don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, when you're forming relationships, being upfront about like, hey, I will do this for you. And, you know, if you need to pay that person, give them free coaching, free lessons. If you're providing value, it's okay to ask for some value back.
True.
But if you're not upfront with it initially, it's hard to.
That's the hardest part.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was starting my social media photography business, I was offering free photos and just hoping people liked it.
Yeah.
And now, like, you could grow into the place where you're getting paid. But if you're starting out on social media, trying to build a business, no matter if you're a fighter coach, but working that exposure route and just building those relationships. But again, you have to be transparent. Like, I'm going to bring you this value.
Yeah.
I hope you could bring me this value. If not, I'll bring you this value. And if worst thing that happens is we just form a new relationship.
Yeah.
That's, I think,
Which is a value in and of itself.
Absolutely.
That's how I started my business. That's how you started your business. Like, relationships are value in and of themselves.
1000%. So with that being said, you know, if I'm a fighter wanting to build my social media following, you could utilize your relationships that you have in the gym, because everyone in the gym has their own social media. you could
Hopefully. At this point,
yes,
hopefully.
at this point. If they don't, then that's not. We're talking about social media here, okay?
Yeah.
So some of those fighters have, large followings than others, and just being able to utilize that, be like, hey, I was thinking about shooting this video of, for sparring, or you want to, hit the bag with someone, just ask like, hey, you want to get in this video with me real fast? This is what I was thinking. They might be down for it. They might not be. You're not going to get it if you don't try.
Yep.
So ask. Then there's 1,000 different ways to do. You could have fun with it, like Tim and Sean O'Malley. They have tons of fun doing just like
Dude, they have a blast.
random little videos. So you could have a bunch of unrelated videos like that. You could go hiking like Henry Corrales. He's big. Like they go on hikes to Sedona all the time, and he goes with other fighters, and in a way that they're all promoting each other's social media without even. It's not like a mindful thing that like, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna tag each other, but they're spreading exposure, they're spreading awareness, they're spreading a lifestyle that they're living where they're outdoors, they're active, they live in the beautiful state of Arizona. They're checking so many boxes just by documenting together, essentially. So
Well, that's what's cool. It's like it's almost what Rogan did with the comedians and podcasts, right? Rogan, he's like, why are we competing? We're supposed to be doing this all together.
absolutely.
And that's something I love about the guys I work with. Like, you're right, like Corrales, Adam Stewart, who else? Space Ghost. Tommy does a good job of this with all the Tim Welch guys. Hunter's getting into it as well. Like, a lot of these people, they're cross-promoting, and they don't think about it like that because they're just fucking having fun.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that is cross-promotion of the best kind because it's authentic.
Absolutely. So trying to utilize as much authentic cross promotion you can. You just have to be mindful about it, is just doing it and creating that content and putting it out there. And then you can be strategic about it. Maybe there's a gym on the other side of town, or you're visiting somewhere. Maybe try and visit a gym, hit up a fighter at that gym who you've been following. I'm sure people are receptive to that. And then you could try and tap into different markets. So like for us with building a fighter, like right now, most of our in-person training, all of our in-person training is here in Phoenix and Scottsdale.
Correct. Yeah.
So that is we have like market, we're not like fully saturated in this market, but like that's where majority of our followers are here. Yeah. But the next steps is us reaching out to some other gyms, maybe California, Texas, in different states, reaching out to their younger fighters, reaching out, seeing if we could build that relationship by
Cross-promoting with management companies.
Yes, management companies reaching out, see, hey, how could we offer your fighters? Like, how could we be of value to you and your fighters? And just trying to leave our market. So
100%. Well, and that's the only way to expand, right? It's trying to bring the right people together.
Yeah.
That's how you grow. At least to me, that's how you grow a business. Because if you have people fighting values, that's when shit falls apart. And like something that we both talked about is authenticity, right? It needs to be authentic to you. Like, I know we've talked like ad nauseum about like Hunter. And Hunter's a quiet guy.
Yeah.
If he tried to go do what O'Malley did, right? That's not going to sell because that's not Hunter. Hunter is the quiet, stoic, but strong type of a person where I think when he leans into that, it sells well. And that's what we've seen recently with the last couple fights is like he's getting more and more popular, not just because he's whooping ass, but because he's falling into, hey, this is me. Like it or not, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see. It's the same way with like Tommy. Tommy's growing rapidly right now. He's got a big Contender Series fight coming up, fighting Austin Bashi on September 3rd, right? He's doing a whole YouTube series that a company paid for, all just based off of, this is just how he lives his life, right? He's come in the gym, he's waking up, he's doing a cold plunge, he's going to Tim's gym hitting mitts. It's literally just following him around. But following him around being him is what people want to see because it's authentic.
Right. And it seems that he's kind of one of those natural entertainers.
100%.
I mean, it is nice that he's at
he saw the blueprint with Sean. But the thing is that I've found recently is originally like he was like he saw what Sean did and he tried to do a little bit like that, but that was like 4 years ago.
Right.
Now Tommy's Tommy, and it looks a little bit like what Sean does, but it's because they're really good friends. that little bit isn't what Tommy is. Tommy's doing Tommy gun things.
Oh, absolutely.
And then he just so happens to be in the same gym as Sean now, which is really cool to see that he's not in anybody's shadow anymore. He's Tommy gun, and he's going to rock with that.
Absolutely. It's for sure exciting to see, and he's got the right idea, making tons of content and putting it out there.
Well, dude, he hired a full-time videographer.
Yeah. Grappling reels.
Yeah.
What is...
Joel.
Joel's following around. Joel's doing great with the photos, great with the videos.
Dude, he's so good.
Yeah, they're putting out that content, which is, again, it's natural for Tommy.
Yeah.
He's thriving in that environment. He's a performer. He's an entertainer. It works for him.
Well, and something else to note, and something that I really like what he's doing, and a few other athletes that I know do, like Trace Cortez is a really good example of this. Being in front of a camera is a skill, right? It's being comfortable on camera in and of itself is a skill. The more you get exposed to that, the better you're going to be moving forward. Right. And that's like, if you watch Tracy's interview like 5 years ago, right? She wasn't super comfortable on camera. She was stumbling over her own words. It was, I think there was one that it was like Latin America month or Latin American Fighter Month or something like that. And her interview was okay, but she definitely was stumbling over her words a little bit. And you see her now when she talks on camera, just because she put herself in that position over and over and over again. Now, she's not flawless, but I mean, pretty damn close. She's really good in front of a microphone and on camera, and it's because she's more comfortable with it. If you want to be a fighter, you got to be good on camera. And it doesn't have to be fake, right? We talked about with Hunter, but you have to prepare for this. The more you're in front of a camera or a microphone, the better you're going to be when you're in a stressful situation.
I mean, it's a muscle. You got to train it just like...
Yeah, it's why me and Alex started the podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I want to get into education. I know I want to have courses, which we'll talk about later in this podcast, and where we're going with building a fighter. But I've always known I wanted to do those things, and I'm a show pony too. Like, I get that about myself. But it's a skill. And I always want to keep getting better at that skill. And the only way to keep getting better is to do it, check how you did, and then make adjustments after. There's a reason why I listened to, this is our 201st episode right now. There's a reason why I've listened to all 200 episodes and critiqued myself with literally notepad and pencil over and over and over again to figure out the tics I don't like, the cues I don't like, where I don't let you talk. I used to be really shitty at that. And I'd cut Alex off all the time.
We're learning.
Exactly. But getting better at that skill in and of itself can help you become better at your personal branding, come better at getting sponsorships, which at the end of the day, one of the hardest parts about being a mixed martial artist and a combat athlete right now is getting paid. Yeah. Like, the pay is shit compared to every other pro sport, unfortunately. And the best way you can supplement that is to get sponsorship deals. No matter what, you start in the UFC, you're at 12-12, unless you're fucking special. Like, unless you're walking in with 180 to 200,000 Instagram followers and you built a name outside of it, you're at 12-12. You lose your first fight and you get hurt, you got $12,000 to live off of for 6 to 9 months. The only way you can supplement that, get sponsorship deals, get people that want to use you as the head of their company. That's how you do it. And the only way to get better at that is to get better in front of cameras and get more natural.
Right. And doing that for so many people, for me, there's a reason I'm not all over my own personal social media, because it's hard. It's hard to feel authentic doing that, and it is silly, but you watch other people who have those huge followings do it. You don't think like, oh, this guy looks ridiculous doing this all the time. It's like, no, it's part of the game. Yep. They're playing the game.
Well, sometimes you do think that they look ridiculous too.
Right. I guess I'm talking about, the people who are good at it.
Right, exactly.
Who just do it without feeling insecure about it.
Right.
So when you really own something, if you're owning your sponsorship or you're selling something, just own it. It's when you kind of tiptoe around it and take an uncomfortable photo with an uncomfortable caption is where people are like, this is disingenuous.
Yep.
But lean into it. Just put yourself into it. Put yourself into the content, the brands, the sponsors. Everyone will appreciate it more if you make it more unique to yourself.
Yep.
So
Another thing I want to talk about with you is we've talked about in the past a whole bunch of you getting into the coaching side. That's something you're passionate about. You're one of the hardest working dudes I've met in the weight room that's not a pro athlete, right? I would argue firefighters are technically pro athletes.
I would argue
you
that
have
too.
to stay
Yeah.
in shape basically for your job, right? But of the non-getting paid to work out athletes I work with, I would say you're one of the hardest workers I've met, and I know it's a passion of yours. What are some things from somebody getting into coaching that you want to learn, or things that would help you from the ground up of learning how to coach?
Just how to pair, like to build the workout from the top to the bottom.
Okay.
Because I've been working with you for so long, you were making mine, and then I've been making my own, and I try and make some for like the guys at my station. And I have a general idea of how, build it from the warm up and just we're prepping the right joints and the right body movements, and then getting into like the main lifts and getting everything down to like the finisher.
Yep.
Superset and everything, but just really like I got the general flow of it, but like if understanding.
Well, then tell me, what's the general flow? What do you do? Right? How do you program a warm up?
How I program, I'll typically do like my 3 main days, which I'll do like bench, squat, and trap bar deadlift, or like my 3 main lifts, and then I try and hit most movements throughout those 3 days. I don't just do on squat days, not just all legs.
Yep.
Like I'll try and do like a rear foot elevated split squat like on my bench day. So I'm not doing squats and rear foot elevated split squats. So then I'm wrecked for my deadlift day.
Good call.
Yeah. So I try and space it out to where I'm maybe a little sore after each one, but each system's not totally wrecked.
Okay.
Cause outside of that, like I'm also, I don't want to be wrecked on shift.
Yeah.
I was doing marathon prep. I'll probably get back into that next month.
Fuck that shit.
So I don't want to get, like, I don't want to not be able to run. So it's just like being able to balance those 3 things. So let's say bench day, I'll probably start with right now, like I'm doing face pulls and flies to begin, but I'll also do like a general warm up. I don't program the warm up directly, but I'll do maybe like a low bear crawl or a couple just more loosen up the joints.
Okay.
Because I'm stiff in the lower body. So I've been trying to hit the hip flexor, strengthen those.
About how long's your warm up?
I aim for like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, my kind of, not rule, there's no really rule on warm-ups, right? But my general guideline would be like some people like a quicker warm-up. I would say at the smallest amount, it should be 7 minutes, right? At the highest amount, if you really want a long warm-up, we're looking 15, 16 minutes. Okay. Anything above that, you're just wasting time. Unless you're like, I just started back up instead of just working out at my gym, I'm going to Lifetime, right? Sometimes your boy likes some machines every now and again. Yeah, they get you swolly. And so, like, if you want to do, like, I call them Lifetime lifts. Okay. Like, if you want to do a longer lift, fuck it, hit a 20-minute warm-up, right? You know you're going to be there for about 90 minutes, though, then. Right. But for an athletic workout, I'd say anywhere between really 7 to 15 minutes. That's where you shoot for a warm-up. Okay. Now, do you do anything that raises the heart rate specifically? Or is it just body prep?
On squat day, I think right now I'm doing some jump rope. Okay. Right now with this program, no, because I'm doing a pretty like extensive finisher on most of those days. But like I've been programming for Mira, and I'll do. I have her doing like rows before just to get that heart rate up. Yeah. Just right now in mine, I'm not like I'll do jump ropes on squat day, and I'll try and get it up a 100%. Bit. Yeah, getting better at jumping rope, but
jumping rope. I've turned the corner. I wasn't for it at first, like 9 years ago, because I personally think I got burnt out on it in wrestling. Yeah. Like you were doing, I mean, sometimes we'd just jump rope for 10 minutes straight, and that shit sucked. And I'm like, what's the point of this? But I've come all the way back around. Okay. I think jump rope's one of the most underutilized thing in a warm-up. And because it does 2 things. It does a few things, but really 2 main ones. One, it's going to be the heart rate elevator, right? Yep. We need to get our heart rate pumping, whether it's a bike, a treadmill, a stair climber, whatever the fuck you want to do, right? But we need to get that going. 2, it gets our extensive plyos in, and not enough anybody, but specifically combat athletes, are getting extensive plyos, even though that's one of the biggest parts of the sport, being able to bounce, right? Extensive plyos. So there's 2 types of plyometric. extensive plyometrics, which are endurance based,
Okay.
or intensive plyometrics. Those are going to be our intensity.
Box
right?
jumps, though.
Box jumps aren't technically a plyo.
All right.
Oh, I'm not going to go into that one, but that's a big old argument in the strength conditioning community. But like anything that we're going for height, where we have to then land. The reason why a box jump's not a plyo is because we're not maximizing the stretch shortening cycle, right? But anything where we're going for high output, that's going to be intensive. Low output, but endurance, extensive, right?
Okay. Yeah.
When we think about a fight, we think about 15 to 25 minutes of being able to do that. We need to stay springy for 15 to 25 minutes. Well, what's one of the best ways to do that? We add in our jump roping. We add in our pogo hops. We add in the low intensity, thinking really 30 to 50%. Really, it's 15 to 40%, but 30 to 50%. And then doing that over and over and over again, whether it's a timed exchange or a certain amount of like high amount of reps, 20 to 50, right? And that's what jump rope does so well. And I wish it was in everybody's warm-up now.
Yeah, started doing it because it's helping with, rehabbing, like running, just stress injuries. Just running. I was running, and my legs were gassed. But now I'll do that before I run. I'll just do like pogo jumps or jump rope.
Yeah.
And it's helped with that. So
nice.
Just trying to keep it in the mix, get better at it. I do it on squat days.
So your big 3 patterns, where do you put those in your workout?
They're typically my second superset.
Okay. What's your first superset?
So bench is face pulls and flies.
Okay.
Just
Yep.
because
Because you like flies.
pulls, I feel like that's helping my shoulders, get my back, get the opposite of what I'm about to be doing. Flies, it's
for the chest, for the chesticles.
Yeah,
I get
it. I'm not gassing out on them, but I'm definitely it's helping prep me a little bit. And then I'll do bench, and right now I'm doing banded push-ups. I'm not doing plyos because my wrist is pissing me off. So
I know a guy that can help with that.
yeah. I figured. So banded, or I would do like medicine ball throws or like chest press.
Okay.
I'm pairing it with that explosive movement.
Okay. Nice.
And as someone
We're doing contrast sets.
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, similar movement. One heavy and then one more fast and explosive.
Love it.
So like squat day is dumbbell jump, like squat jumps.
Yep.
After my squats. And as someone who wants to get more into coaching, if I could really break down why I know that's what I should do, and I know it's better, like it helps, increase both things, but to be able to break down like the science of it would be
I got you, fam.
Yeah.
So post-activation potentiation, PAP, that is the concept behind it, right? Yeah. And when we do a heavy movement that allows us to recruit more like motor neurons or motor units is really what it is. So more muscle fibers can contract when we're doing anywhere between 90 to 95%. That's where we want to be on that strength movement. When we then go pair that with an explosive movement where it's anything from speed strength, which is going to be, if we think force velocity curve, it's like this, right? High velocity, low velocity, high force, low force, right? Technically it'd be the other way, but either way. If we're up here, we want anything from speed strength, which is going to be our faster movements with a little bit of weight, dumbbell jumps, or just straight plyos, right? Both of those are fantastic, but we want them to be relatively low load and relatively high explosiveness. Okay. When we do that, it allows us to maximize the power returns because as we prep those increased motor unit use, that allows us to then jump higher, jump farther, explode higher if we're doing plyo push-ups, stuff like that, because we got the muscles able to fire. So that's why we want to do it almost right away. We don't want to take the minute in between. We throw that as like a famous video that went around for a long time was Saquon. Saquon Barkley was doing like a 500-pound trap bar deadlift right into a massive box jump. That's why. It's because he hit that for 2 reps. I think it technically was like 515. 2 reps at 515 trap bar deadlift, and then right into 1 box jump. And I believe it was at 42 to 48 inches, something like that, high enough. And that explosiveness, where we have to then explode out of the hole, allows us to then maximize the power returns because we prep that tissue to explode higher. That's why it works. It's think about like we need to pull back the rubber band or get the rubber band ready to go before we can shoot it as far forward as we can. I pull back my rubber band even further when I maximize my strength returns.
Okay, so For right now, squat day, I think I'm just doing like 3x8s with squat. Like I'm periodizing my training.
Okay. Good for you.
Right now it's 3x8. I just got done with like a 4x5.
Okay.
So now 3x8, I'm just trying to get a little more volume, just per set, not overall.
Yeah.
But and now I'm doing I think 3x3 or 3x4 on the squat jumps.
Okay.
Is that too many? Should I do just like 1 to 2 reps of the jumps?
So yeah, I mean it all depends on what you're training for, right? If you're training to get back into that like marathon running, like if you need more explosions, you definitely could do it like that, right? But if we really want to maximize that PAP, if we want to maximize our potentiation, then we would want to do anywhere between 3 to 5, really 2 to 5 reps, and then 2 to 3 jumps after.
Okay.
Right? We can go, and then we can do other things, right? We can do French contrast, which is 4 different ways to activate potentiation, or 4 different exercises. But for the most part, if we're getting like 8 reps of something on the strength side, we probably aren't able to have a high enough load to where it's going to maximize our returns on the potentiation.
Okay.
And that being said, there's a bunch of different ways to contrast. I'm just talking about the basic one right now. What you're doing is a form of contrast. It's just, I don't think it's going to be as effective as if we had a super high load with a super high effort on the plyometric.
Yeah, so I keep trap bar. Trap bar is the only one that I'm just strength.
Yeah.
So it's like 4x5 for the most part. And then a couple, I'll do slams or a form of a jump with
Okay. I love it.
the trap bar deadlift.
Right. And like I said, my biggest frustration in sports performance, but specifically combat sports performance, is so many people think there's right answers. There's no right answers. People don't realize that strength and conditioning is only like 70 years old, right? It's not this long thing that's been going on forever. We're still finding out research every single day. Right. There's no real right answers. Like a form of contrast that I use but hasn't been studied a whole lot is isometric into plyometric. Doing a high, like really it's just a high threshold hold right into exploding. And the reason I use that is it's very similar to combat sports. Say you get stuck against the cage for 30 seconds, but you got to fucking explode right off the cage right into a 3-piece combo. Well, I need to be able to go from a static hold right into an explosive movement. Why can't we train that? Right. That's a form of contrast in and of itself. It isn't necessarily right or wrong, but I need to prep that athlete for what they're going to be exposed to. And while proper contrast is not that, it's not wrong to do. So that's off of my soapbox now. But that's a thing, like I just want to preface it with like the 3x8 right into maximal jumps at 4 to 6 reps. That's not wrong. It's just different. Yeah. You're training more for the endurance side of the explosive contrast, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
What about so we hit the warm up, we hit the main block, which talking about the main block, one of the things for people at home is like this is where me and Alex have fought in the past. But so Alex's concept on this is you want to do the highest neural output exercise possible. So you're always doing power next. Mm-hmm. My biggest concept or my biggest thought process is you want your A block, unless you're doing a prep block like you did, to be the number one goal because you want as much energy as possible for what the main goal of the workout's supposed to be. That's not necessarily what the books say. That's my own personal preference as I program because I want that person, while they have as much energy as possible, they're feeling as fresh as possible to hit what I need them to hit right away. After that, then we have diminishing energy returns, right? So like sometimes I'll have my guys, like I'll start them on the air bike at fucking 612s for 20 reps, right? 6 seconds on, 12 seconds off. That's because the main focus of that day is going to be conditioning day. The main focus is prepping the engine to explode.
20 rounds?
Yeah. Well, because if we think about that, it's 18 seconds a round, so you're doing 3 per minute. Realistically, that's if you're doing 3 per minute, that's like 7 minutes of work.
Is that 6 all out?
Yeah, 6 seconds of fucking sprint, right? But we're gonna see a drop off.
Yeah,
that's our alactic. Like it's a 1 to 2 work rest ratio, so we're just gonna start seeing a drop off and drop off and drop off. Yeah. And you can do 630s, you can do 654s, but for as we get really it's like right at the beginning of camp. I like to use that time frame. Right at the beginning of camp, I want them to get prepped on, all right, we got to explode, then we got a little bit of rest. Explode, a little bit of rest, just so they can start to understand what that energy system is.
Gotcha. Yeah, like right now I'm trying to do, I think it's the Norwegian 4x4 protocol.
I just programmed like 3 of those.
Yeah, so I do that. I have my assault bike in the backyard.
Yeah.
I'll hit that sometimes when it's hot out, just because.
You're being nice to yourself. That's supposed to be running, homie.
You could do from podcasts I've listened to. Assault bike 4x4. You could do a rower. You know, it's 4 minutes, and then it sucks on the assault bike. Like I'm outside, 2 p.m. So also doing a little heat exposure.
Dude, anything at 80% 4 minutes straight sucks.
Yeah. So I try and just hit those like similar RPMs, and I'm probably like 160 to that last 4 minutes. I'm like 170 is like almost like anaerobic at that point. But I try to really once every 2 weeks, just because life happens. Ideally once a week. Like when I was in med school, I was doing it every Monday. It was pretty great. And then I'm trying to do like either 10-20s or 10-50s.
Okay.
Sprints.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just doing all assault bike or rower, no running stuff. I'll start running again next month.
Yeah.
And working in some track sprints and just getting that.
When would be your next race?
I don't know.
Gotcha.
I want to get my 5 and 10K faster.
Okay. Yeah.
Work on like really speeding up, like getting more explosive and fast for the short distance.
Yep.
And then seeing how that affects my long distance and doing less volume, but more like high intensity.
I can tell you, good.
Yeah.
That's the most underrated training element of long distance runners is they don't want to focus on the strength and power.
Yeah.
Because it's not what they're good at. It's the same thing like me when I develop my own lifts, it's all conditioning and endurance because that's what the fuck I'm good at.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to lean into the thing you're good at. When in reality, hey, what would make my body feel so much better? Well, probably 3 to 5 rep range for like 6 sets.
Right.
But fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Unless somebody programs for me and I pay for that, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But you should.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, in high school and middle school, I was 100, 200 meter sprints.
Yep.
It was like my thing. So I like running short and fast, and I hated distance. And it wasn't until recently that I started running distance.
Gotcha.
And that whole marathon and then my half Ironman prep, it was some high intensity runs. But again, I feel like I prioritize those longer distances.
Yep.
Because mentally, I'm like, I have to see if I could do that.
Fair. Yeah.
Because like the first time I ran a marathon.
Because David Goggins said so.
No. But it's like I didn't want to go run 26 miles for the race if I didn't run that 20 before, 4 weeks before the race.
Yeah.
So, but now I did it. Now I'm going to switch up my training style.
100%. So. Yeah. And then, so sticking on the theme of your workouts, what's the ender? What's the finisher? Because you said you don't just do the main pattern.
Right.
How many patterns are you hitting in a day?
According to what we just shared, our 7 main movement patterns, I try and do hit that 5.
Nice.
So bench, I do face pulls, flies, bench. So I'm doing 3 of that press. What did I do after? Then I think I do a little tricep. So I think right now my bench day is probably my most isolated like press.
Okay.
But then I'll do a goblet squat with a tricep extension.
Okay.
And then finisher, I'll do 30 seconds on the rower. And it's a density circuit. So
Yep.
started at 12. This week was 13. Next week will be 14 minutes.
What's a density circuit for the people at home?
Based on my knowledge it's continuous working set.
Yeah.
So you set the time, you're going to work through your circuits, and you're going to maintain a pace the entire time.
Bingo. It is not an AMRAP, and that is the biggest complaint I have for people I program online. A density circuit is supposed to be done at a consistent pace. We're supposed to stay focused on pacing, which is one of the hardest parts for combat athletes and really just anybody, right? An AMRAP is, hey, do it as fast as fucking possible. You're trying to get as many reps as possible. But a density circuit, if I program it's an 8 out of 10, stay at an 8 out of 10 the whole time.
And then mentally, I did 5, almost 6 rounds.
Yep.
And it wasn't like I'm like, got to get these rounds done, but I'm just like tracking that out of my.
Right. The word is repeatable. You should be able to repeat. If you time the first, the first set, you should be within about 15% of your first set to your last set on your time. If you're not, you're going too fast.
Right. Yeah. So I did 30 seconds, pretty high intensity rower into, I think I did a hammer curl, shoulder press, and then a suitcase carry.
Nice.
And I just.
Hell yeah. I love it.
Shoulder press gassed me out though.
Dude, that's how it works.
Yeah.
One of the main things so we put that post out talking about the 7 main patterns, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things I'll say, and we didn't dive into it in the post just because that's for everybody, right? But if you listen to the podcast, you're a little special. This is for, like, if we're programming for a high level athlete, so to say, you don't need all those patterns, right? It's yes for longevity. If I'm in the longevity bucket, we need 5 of those 7 patterns basically every lift. We're trying to hit each pattern twice a week at minimum, right? If we're going for performance, well, high performance isn't always healthy. That's one of those things where if I have a fighter that we're focusing on an isolated deficiency, well, we might hit that fucking deficiency 3 or 4 times and we might leave out some of the other patterns just because we're trying to train for a goal and we're trying to train for performance, not necessarily like making their body feel as healthy as possible. Because if we're in fight camp, it's about getting that fucking paycheck because you only get half if you weigh in. Yeah. You got to win to get the other half. So I care a lot less about you feeling great or your body feeling great than I do about you getting your second paycheck. And obviously that's to an extent, right? We're not going to do things that are going to harm the athletes. But we're getting closer to the limits of, all right, we're focused on performance, not necessarily health when we're training.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So just trying to balance all those things. And again, because I work with you and I see how you program for your athletes. I like to listen to like Peter Attia.
You're a big Huberman guy.
And then now Andy Galpin has his own podcast.
Mm-hmm. And he's had 3 podcasts now, I think 2 or 3. Yeah.
Well, this one's
you got to go back to the OG episodes because they're fantastic.
Yeah. So I found I listened to his strength series with Huberman, and I'm always just taking in this content because it's something I always like learning about. Mm-hmm. So I'm now making my own programs, and it's hard for me. I'm like, all right, this is for 2 months, and it's progressing, and I document all my stuff, and sometimes I'm like, that sounds fun. So the hardest thing for me is like,
that's why you're doing the Nordic 4x4.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, and I'm glad I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But just being able to stick with it and not just like see the next shiny thing. So which is great, like with building a fighter and having someone else do it. Yeah. It's not up to whatever
you just listened to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's one of the hardest parts about building out your own programs. And that's actually half the reason why we made the company in the first place, is because you can get, especially combat sports, social media, strength and conditioning type stuff. It's so trendy, right? You'll see the latest exercise where you're standing on a Bosu ball doing a fucking med ball slam. Yeah. And maybe like my biggest thing is that isn't necessarily wrong. It's not my favorite, not something I would pick. But there's probably a reason why that person picked it outside of just to put it on social media. Or, sometimes it is just to put on social media and then you call them out. But I've started to wean my way back on criticizing other people because you don't know why they picked certain exercises. Yeah. And at the end of the day, exercise selection matters a lot less than the programming does. The actual intensities you're picking, the actual like rep schemes you're picking. Exercise selection is probably one of the lowest, if not the second lowest priority when it comes to programming a month or a year long macro or meso cycle, right? So I kind of weaned off on that. But the reason why it's important to follow a program is so you don't get stuck in the weeds. Because you might see that. You might not understand why that person's doing it, right? And then you decide to do that for 8 fucking weeks. Mm-hmm. And this is something I'll promise you. Nobody should be doing a med ball slam on a Bosu ball for 8 weeks. It's probably for either some ankle rehab focus or for getting their foot to fire the way that it should be, right? Those are the only two. And if I'm doing that for 8 weeks, there's probably a problem. I would progress from that at some point in time. And that's what it comes down to as far as like getting higher level programming and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just what's the coolest thing, because how many people you think probably jumped into Nordic 4x4s recently? Who was talking about it? Was it Huberman?
No.
It seems like a Huberman thing.
No, I think this was Dr. Rhonda Patrick.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense too. Which, ironically enough, you notice how Joe Rogan's all bullshit on anybody that's not a medical doctor being called doctor, and she's not a medical doctor, and he calls her Dr. Rhonda Patrick? Wild. I always found that funny. It's because he hates on my profession. So I've noticed that. He's like, oh, chiropractors aren't real doctors. Then he calls a PhD a fucking doctor. And I'm like, the fuck is this?
Same.
The fuck is this? Yeah. I actually went to fucking up school that I can practice medicine.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there. I think she's very good at what she does.
Right.
But that is a trendy thing that I've seen a lot of people jumping into recently.
Yeah.
And I think it was because somebody, sounds like Rhonda Patrick, mentioned it on a podcast, and now everybody wants to try it.
Yeah.
That's where, if you have a coach or you have a program, you can go through the weeds and not jump right into it. Because I'm not saying it was wrong.
Right.
It probably was fucking great exactly for you, for what you need right now.
Yeah.
But I bet you you're 7%. The other 93% probably aren't even ready to do that thing yet. They can't hit 80% for 4 minutes, let alone 16 minutes.
Right.
So they're going to jump in and they're not even going to be training in the right area. Right. But that's a long answer for talking about programming and like where building a fighter's going.
Yeah.
As a co-owner now, where do you see us going in the future? And give some people at home, like, what's the game plan?
Game plan for us is to bring, this top level programming to, athletes from high school, collegiate, you're just practicing jiu-jitsu. You're a 30-year-old dad, you're a mom, whoever, like just making this professional programming readily available at different price points.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of our custom program options because they get to work with you. They get to talk about, hey, I'm deficient here, here, and here. Right. Like when I first started working with you, like I had hip impingement.
Yeah.
And just working through.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. It comes like this. But being able to like talk to a professional and work through those things is a great, not only just a professional strength coach, but having your medical background and understanding how the systems work as a whole is amazing. But then you take that and you make it into like a simpler version with our Building a Fighter workout, which is an overall great program at a pretty affordable.
The membership
price.
option?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Our flagship membership.
Yes. Yeah. Having that, so you do whatever weights are comfortable for you. You have the app, you can track it all. Just having that is
fire.
Yes. So
Fire.
I think one of my captains at my department he's a subscriber to the Building Fighter membership.
Heck yeah.
But being able to bring that to people of all different walks of life.
Yep.
Not just here in Arizona, but hopefully across the world. I was going to say.
Well, we have worldwide.
Country,
Yeah. Well, we have worldwide people.
Yeah.
Like at this point, we got somebody in the Netherlands. We got a few Australians, Mexico, Canada. I don't know if that's basically America North. Honestly. Yeah. But yeah, all Europe and everything. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, right? Is like, don't be wrong, fucking red, white, and blue, these colors don't fucking bleed. But like, for the most part, like I want to be able to expand our programming across the world to where we're not just impacting American MMA. We're impacting MMA. Right. We're impacting combat sports. And it's not just MMA. Like the reason we have different programs the way they're built is because MMA isn't the only combat sport. The reason we market to them is because that's what I'm making my in-person business about, right? That's what Warrior Sports Wellness was designed to do, wrestling and MMA. But the further I've gotten into this field, the more I've noticed a need for the other niches, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So many people just jump, like that's the one that people can do until they're 80, right? And if you do it right, you stay healthy while you do it. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people don't do it right. A lot of people don't focus on like, if I want to be on the mat 4 days a week until I'm 50, 60, right? I need to be able to strength train as well. If I'm not strength training while I'm doing that, most likely my body's not going to be strong enough to be able to be robust and stay away from those injuries that we know pop up with jiu-jitsu. Well, that's where our programs come in, right? It's taking the guesswork out of trying to stay strong, but not just strong, stay healthy. And a lot of recreational or non-professional combat athletes, they don't see the value, right? They don't see, oh man, I should take care of my body in a way that keeps me on the mat, because they don't see what we have, well, at least what I have to see every day in clinic, where if I have a recreational roller that they love jiu-jitsu, but they just keep tearing their shoulder, tearing their knee, aches and pains everywhere. Typically, the best way to keep those away is to stay as strong as possible. But if we don't stay as strong as possible, that's a problem. And that's where these programs come in. We have programs for not just professional athletes, that's my in-person target market. The online target market's actually not necessarily just for professional athletes. I would say it's probably the minority of who we work with. It's the people that love the sport but want to stay on the mat as long as possible and feel better doing it. It's the people that want to go to Masters Worlds. I would say that's probably our biggest market, is Masters level jiu-jitsu athletes that want to continue to be able to compete. That's where I have the most fun, at least, with the programming.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think, just being a firefighter, I like to think, in a way, we are a form of combat athletes.
Well, technically, I'm building a firefighter too. I just haven't launched that yet.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll
get there.
But so my captain, who I was mentioning, is a member. He does jiu-jitsu in the small town where he lives.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of access to, like good quality gym equipment, but he is doing what he can at the station with those. But he actually asked me a question, and I think this would be good. He went and he rolled jiu-jitsu for like this last week and went a couple times. And he's like, Sid, you got to ask Austin, I need to strengthen my neck. Yep. He's like, I was just getting cranked on. So do you have a couple?
So, yeah, I mean, neck exercises?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
For Anthony, if you're listening.
I got you, fam. So neck exercises are one of the things that I want to, so Gavin Pratt, the head of strength conditioning for UFCPI, he's coming out with a whole neck program, right? And we don't have a neck specific program, but I'm starting to add more and more neck stuff in to help with people, because the second most common injury I see in person is cervical disc herniations. It's neck pain that radiates down the arm or into the shoulder blade, right? People don't realize that that's disc. Well, it is. I hate to break it to you guys. And the first step is literally just self-isometrics, right? They're boring, but they're easy. You just put your hand on your head. We go in every vector, forward, backward, side, side, and you're just going to hold that pushing in to your head anywhere between 5 to 15 seconds. You can go all the way up to 30, but I think that gets boring, and I think we can progress to something else before that. You do that for 3 or 4 sets. Next thing I'd say is, if you really want to invest into neck training, the iron neck is the best way to do it. I haven't found anything that's better than the iron neck. It's one of the best things for loading isometrically while moving your body around. So holding a position, which is similar to jiu-jitsu, but getting strong in that position.
Is that halo looking thing?
It's the halo looking thing. Okay. Yep. And you can load it up with weight because it's got an attachment to put it on a cable stack. It comes with bands that you can put onto whatever rack you have or available to you. But there's all these different ways that you can use the iron neck, and you can add neck training into what you're doing. Like, I know Gavin's really big on, like, he'll put the iron neck on a Kaiser machine, and he'll have people take double legs while they're getting pulled back into cervical retraction. So it's strengthening the neck as we're doing something else. It's just an accessory movement to make a big pattern also focus on the neck too. So that's another way. Last way is just doing straight up chin retractions and doing overpressure. So a chin retraction is chin through like Adam's apple or throat. We're trying to not look down. We're just looking straight. And we're almost like, if you're a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy, a body lock, you don't just pull to your body. A body lock, you pull to you and you try to scoop underneath their ribs to get more leverage, right? That's what I'm doing with my chin. I'm trying to pull it back, but it's also scooping underneath to try to grow and get taller from the top of my head, and doing that over and over and over again, just because when we're grappling, we get stuck in the opposite movement a bunch. That's going to be protraction. That's almost like that turtleneck is what I call it, or Tex neck is what some people call it. If we do the opposite it allows us to at least kind of counteract that movement, which takes away the aches, pains, and that's actually the first step that I give people for the most part when it comes to cervical disc herniation help. A chin retraction for a whole bunch of reps and whole bunch of sets, 10 by 10 is typically my go-to prescription. That's where I would start, would be those 3. Those are the easiest to implement. Iron necks, 240, 250, but it's something, if you're a combat athlete, there's not many things that I would rather you invest in than an iron neck. And I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not associated with them at all. It's just the best thing I've found. But yeah, that's where I'd start. That being said, my little caveat, I don't give healthcare advice over the podcast. While that's what I do in clinic, you'd need to be assessed before I would give that to you as healthcare advice, purely fitness-based.
Copy that.
Cool. But yeah, that's what I would do. Neck strength is huge, and ankle strength, which we kind of talked about with the jump ropes. That's the 2 things that I think are underutilized and need to be added into more programs, which we've started to.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm excited about, what we're growing into with Building a Fighter, is the ebook / manual that should be coming out here in the next, we'll probably be done with it in the next 90 days or really 60 days. But then getting it out to you guys by 90 days. That's going to be like building strength and conditioning, called Building a Fighter, build your own strength and conditioning routine, basically walking through from a beginner all the way to an advanced athlete. How do we program in camp, out of camp, the phases of in camp, recovery modalities, what a good warm up looks like, when you should be getting any sort of therapy or why you'd get therapy. All that will be in this ebook, and it's going to be pretty cheap, mostly because I want to get it out to you guys and get good information out there into your hands. And then if you like what we do, maybe you sign up for a program, right? Maybe you look at the other stuff, but I don't want there to be really any barriers of cost to getting that good information out there. So I think price point right now we're working on, it's going to be between $15 to $30. But it'll be a pretty intensive ebook with really good information. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm excited about, which should be out there in the next, at least before Q4 of 2024.
Yeah, it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have been asking, what are some recovery tips? How do I set this up? Why do we do that? So it's having that just, one, let's say if it's someone who is doing our Building a Fighter program, they could even have that. Just it'll help them understand why you build and design these programs in such ways.
Exactly. So. Yeah. What else did we launch recently? We launched the newsletter. If you guys aren't on the website, on the newsletter, that'll be going out. Right now it's once a month, but it might go a little bit more frequent depending upon, honestly, how much time we have. But at least once a month right now. And that'll be sent to your email. If you want to go sign up for that, that's going to be at buildingafighter.com. And all you got to do is sign up for the free conditioning template, which everybody should have anyways, and that'll put you on our newsletter. I think we sent it out to a good amount of people. I don't remember how many, but it was a good amount of people that signed up originally. But that'll have essentially our kind of like flow. There'll be a density circuit or work capacity circuit of the month, a mobility circuit of the month that comes with videos. That's also going to have a tech and or something new in fitness that we would recommend or highlight for the month. And then we'll talk about our podcast, favorite video, because I have the Understanding Combat Sports Performance line as well. And really just any concept that we want to dive into to help combat athletes of any kind and at any level. And that'll be at buildingafighter.com. Outside of that, we talked about the courses yet?
No. Yeah.
We got courses too, everybody. We're doing a lot of cool shit coming up at Building a Fighter. The courses, so we're going to have a 3 to 4 tiered course system coming out there. We've talked about it for a while, but it's finally to the point where we can actually put it into motion. And that'll be starting to come out, the online form. We're looking to launch before 2025. But if not before 2025, at least in January of 2020. No,
2025.
January 2025. Sorry, yes. Math's hard. But getting the courses out there, basically the whole course and design of level 1, which would be the first one, is we need everybody in our performance pentagon: strength coach, skill coach, healthcare, sports dietitian, sports psychologist, all around that athlete, talking the same language, understanding what their roles are, and really figuring out how we can best help the person in the middle of the performance pentagon, which is that combat athlete. So it's for anybody involved with combat athletics, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, MMA, really anybody that wants to help that population, even combat athletes yourself, so you would understand how a proper camp would be run. That's available not yet, but probably by the end of the year is when that'll be up and running on our app, which will also be up in a couple months. But I'm freaking pumped about that one because I think that's the first step really in expanding to a much wider audience and getting a certification out there so that we know who is qualified to work with combat athletes. Because right now there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of people that say, I work with one fighter ever. And they think they know how to work with a combat sports athlete. And that's just not the case. You might come from football. You might understand what strength and conditioning is, but if you don't know how to speak the lingo, if you don't know how to talk to a combat athlete, if you don't know how to really understand the culture, you can't help them to the highest level. And it's something that I've admired about like FMS, TPI, the stuff that they've done. And I want to build the combat sports version in my way. Yeah. And that'll be that building a fighter level 1 course. And I think it's going to be one of those things that should kind of set the MMA and combat sports world by storm so that we all have a common language to use when working with combat athletes.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I think we have a lot of exciting stuff that we're putting out. His brain is full of a lot of helpful information.
A lot of ideas, y'all.
A lot of ideas, a lot of great things. So for athletes, you know, if you're a young kid living in a small rural town and just don't have access to some of these top tier like jiu-jitsu gyms or MMA gyms, this is a way that you could hone your strength and conditioning at home while just doing your best to hone your craft in whatever gym you find. But yeah, we're trying to
change shit,
make it more accessible for people of all walks of life. So I'm excited for it.
Well, if you follow, this is the first in-person podcast. Leave us a like, leave us a review. There's also on Spotify, there's comments now, which is dope. We don't get many though, because we have a lot of silent listeners. Tell us what you think. I want to hear you guys. I want to hear topics you want to talk about. We're going to do way more in person with fighters and coaches in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area, but we'll still get our guests all remotely. And I'm sure Alex will pop up here and there, but let us know who you want us to talk to. If there's any recommendations, and show Sid some love. Go onto the Instagram, talk to him. He's the one that handles basically all of it.
Yeah. So send us a question, leave some comments.
Chat with that dude.
Yeah.
But if you guys got to get in touch with us, info's in the show notes. That's going to be Instagrams and email. And outside of that, it's Dr. Austin Shane.
Sid Pearce.
And we are out.